First, fast, and accurate. News Channel 25, WVTT.
Now our first look at weather on WVTT, and we begin with a special weather statement from the National Weather Service. In Pennsylvania, snow squalls during the overnight hours and wind gusts potentially of up to 30 miles per hour. Otherwise, snow in the Twin Tiers, overnight low temperature 6 degrees. More snow tomorrow with a high temperature tomorrow. Get this, a high temperature only 10 degrees. So extreme bitter cold. Good idea to also check on a neighbor. And we'll have complete weather details straight ahead here on WVTT.
Global news update on WVTT.
Gun rights supporters rallied in cities across the country, including in Buffalo, on the first National Gun Appreciation Day. Now, the rally in Las Vegas coincided with a closed-door meeting between Nevada lawmakers and NRA lobbyists.
In front of the federal courthouse Saturday afternoon, dozens of people showed up to voice their support of the constitutional right to keep and bear arms.
I've met a lot of great people here. I've been able to get the word out on a couple of different organizations that I support, and I'm just having fun.
Raising signs and soliciting honks from supporters driving by, this group is taking part in Guns Across America, a nationwide rally taking place in cities across the U.S. This comes as others have protested the sale and legality of semi-automatic rifles after a deadly year of mass shootings across the country.
They have the right to say whatever they would like to under the First Amendment, and I respect that. I do not have an issue getting into a conversation with somebody. However, if they're going to argue with me, I don't argue with idiots.
On Saturday morning, 19 NRA lobbyists held a 3-hour closed-door event with Nevada legislators at a local gun range. That has some groups upset.
Well, we don't know what's going to happen behind those closed doors, and that's the problem. Why are there no members of the media invited? Why are there no members of the public invited? Why is it just NRA lobbyists and our elected officials?
This is a time when both sides of this gun issue are wary of what lawmakers will decide to do about certain guns.
It's a tool like anything else. There are plenty of people who drive and drink and then run into people and kill them, and you don't really have a lot of people going to ban cars.
In the Middle East, protests sparked by protests. There's outrage across Saudi Arabia after women and children were detained for speaking out against the government. That's illegal in Saudi Arabia. A domino effect has now taken place across the country. CNN's Mohammed Jamjoon has the story.
The gathering was small, its impact potentially huge. Here, long-simmering anger shatters longer-standing cultural taboos. In the ultra-conservative heartland of Saudi Arabia, where women are struggling to gain their own rights, these mothers, daughters, sisters, and wives ventured out, many with their children, demanding the rights they say their loved ones have been denied. Demonstrating in the town of Buraida, calling for the release of relatives they say have been jailed for years without access to lawyers, never having been tried. In a country where protests are prohibited, it didn't take long for the police to show up. This amateur video posted on YouTube appears to show security forces encircling the women. According to Amnesty International, 18 women and 10 children were arrested. Residents were quick to plead for their release. In this video, a woman cries as she secretly films riot police outside the jail where some of the women were reportedly taken. Disbelief heard in the voice of a man asking why women and children would have been detained. Outrage grew quickly, leading to even more demonstrations. Here, Buraida again. Not just a march, a declaration, chanting they do not fear the country's interior minister, demanding he release the women, announcing their arrest a red line that should never have been crossed. Activists say small protests spread to other cities. In Riyadh, the country's capital, they called for the release of the women and children. In Mecca, the kingdom's religious capital, they called for the release of political prisoners. Activists say many are held in connection with the country's counter-terrorism efforts, those charges disputed by their relatives. The protests, an extraordinary development in an absolute monarchy intolerant of dissent. The Interior Ministry told CNN all the women arrested in Buraida have now been released along with their children. As for the other detainees, the government says it can't comment on ongoing cases. Activists and families are vowing to continue calls for their release. And in this deeply conservative country where women are expected to stay silent, it's their voices that may turn out to be the loudest. Mohammed Jamjoom, CNN, Beirut.
Breakfast for dinner, that's always one of my favorite meals, but this is getting a little ridiculous. How about some eggs over easy, frozen style? Yep, we're looking at a high temperature tomorrow in Olean of just 10 degrees. That's right, just 10 degrees for a high tomorrow in Olean, but even colder out in Minnesota. Check this out. This iReporter says she wanted to see what would happen if she took breakfast outside. Cracked an egg on a cookie pan, and voila, a half hour later, a frozen egg, sunny side up. Now, temperatures out in Minnesota are in the negative numbers, and while that's not that uncommon, experts warn it could be dangerous both there and here because of the risk of frostbite and heart strain as well. So make sure, as I mentioned before, that you do keep an eye on any elderly neighbors that you have and bundle up outside. The markets were closed today due to the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, so no WVTT Wall Street wrap-up. We'll be back with WVTT Sports next on News Channel 25 WVTT.